All beautiful the march of days as seasons come and go. The hand that shaped the rose hath wrought the crystal of the snow. Has sent the hoary frost of him, the flowing waters sealed, and laid a silent loveliness on hill and wood and field. O'er white expanses sparkling clear, the radiant morns unfold. The solemn splendors of the night burn brighter through the cold. Life moans in every throbbing vein, love deepens round the hearth, and clearer sounds the angel hymn, goodwill to all on earth. O thou whose own fathomed law the year in beauty flows, thyself the vision passing by in crystal and in rose. Day unto day doth utter speech, and night to night proclaim, in ever-changing words of light, the wonder of thy name.
Good morning. And Happy New Year. Gosh, it seems like it's been forever since we've seen each other, even though it's been just a few weeks. But good to have you all. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. Hopefully I can remember my routine. It's been so long. Where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Hey, you remembered. Wonderful. So welcome, as always, to each and every one of you, those of you who are here in the room with us, those who are Zooming with us, those who are streaming with us. It's great to have all of you with us today. We embrace all that you bring with you to this space, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences. All that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. So thanks to one and all for coming. I want to begin by noting that the Unity candle is lighted at the front of our sanctuary, something we do when one of our members has passed away sometime between services. And this candle is lit today for Rosemary Belays. She passed away on December 17th at age 91. She and her husband, Spokane's famous artist Harold Belays, who passed away in 2017, were longtime members of our congregation, although they've not been able to attend in person often for many years. But we honor Rosemary's life in her light in our world with this candle during our service today. Also want to let you know of a unique opportunity. The pastoral care team is inviting you to attend what can be an important class for many. It's a balance class. It's called A Matter of Balance, and it's going to be actually held next Sunday at 12:30 in our chapel, which is the room behind the sanctuary here. And you can sign up for it. There's going to be a limit of 12. There's already 2 spots taken, so keep that in mind if you're interested. But it's going to be presented by staff members from Aging and Long-Term Care of Eastern Washington, and the class is designed to help, one, prevent the fear of falling for those who are but can potentially fall easily, help increase the activity levels of adults who have concerns about falling, help those who are interested in improving flexibility, balance, and strength. So this is a great New Year's resolution to become more balanced in the months ahead. And this will be your first opportunity again next Sunday, January 15th at 12:30 in our chapel. If you want to, you can sign up then in the chapel on Sunday as long as there's room remaining. But if you want to sign up in advance, Betty Bradabo is back there, one of our ushers this morning, so you can also, she's a member of the pastoral care team and can get you signed up in advance as well. So thank you to the pastoral care team for providing such an important class. Okay, I also want to give a special welcome to our members who are Zooming with us this morning. And I can turn around and see quite a good number of folks up there. Let's start with hey, there, oh my gosh, there's a whole table of folks up there. I can't count because it's very small on my screen, but it looks like about 6 or 7 folks. Who's at the table?
A group of 7 of us from Port Townsend from the Tomato Soup Group.
Oh, Ron, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I recognize your voice. Are you guys having tomato soup for breakfast?
Yeah. Well, no, we've got croissants.
Croissants, good. So this group named themselves the Tomato Soup Group because the first time they met, they had tomato soup and grilled cheese, and they thought that that was as good a name as any other. So they could have been called the Grilled Cheese Group, but I think tomato soup is more sounds better. So anyway, welcome to all of you, and good to have you this morning. We're going to we get to the point where there I can see all of you now. You're in the center of the screen. Hi. I think I've met all of you at some point too. So good to have you with us remotely all the way from Port Townsend this morning. So good. Well, we'll talk more about some of the folks on Zoom in a little bit because some of them have recently joined our congregation, and we're going to have a bit of a new member ceremony during our service this morning as well. So welcome to all of you. It's always great to have you, as it is to the many of you who are streaming it with us as well, whom we can't see, but we know you're there. So let's take just a few moments this morning to greet one another. You can do so obviously on Zoom. If you're Zooming, if you're streaming, you can text somebody, and if you're in the room, you can take a short walk and say hi to somebody you know, or meet somebody you don't.
Okay, well,
All right, more opportunity to visit during our social hour following the service, but let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
For this 1 hour, Spirit of life, we let go. For this 1 hour, may we let go of our anxieties, our fears, our angers, our self-doubts, our regrets, our petty grievances, and our distractions. If only for this 1 hour, let the flame of our chalice burn them from our hearts and minds, and light our way to peace and serenity for this 1 hour.
Our first in-service hymn of the morning is called "The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time." And it's an old tune, and it's pretty easy to sing, so please rise as you're willing and ever. This is ringing up here, Todd, this mic. Okay. The ceaseless flow of endless time, no one can check or stay. We'll view the past with no regret, nor future with dismay. The present slips into the past and dream like melts away. The breaking of tomorrow's dawn begins anew today. The past and future ever meet in the eternal now. To make each day a thing complete shall be our New Year vow.
We will now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. I did not have any specific requests, but want to begin, as we have been now for, to my surprise, is going on a year, or close to a year, the people of Ukraine and that region of the world who are being impacted by the violence there, and including, might I add, the Russian people, either because they're being deceived as to what's going on in their country and to what's really happening, but also we're getting a lot of reports of hundreds of children being killed. And when I say children, I mean soldiers, because soldiers are children most of the time. As somebody who's moving into becoming an old man, I can refer to 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds as children. But it's absolutely disturbing to hear those reports of 400, 600 Russian soldiers killed today. And my heart goes out to them as much as it does anybody else involved in this conflict. So let's take this unnecessary conflict, I might add. Let's take a moment of silence now on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. If you didn't catch the name of that tune, it's Popsicle's Toes. You probably feel like you've had popsicle toes for the past few weeks around here, but that seemed like a tune in which one would be very happy to have popsicle toes.
It's a nice January tune.
A nice January tune, okay. The thaw has begun. So in lieu of our time for all ages today, we are going to recognize some new members. We have recently had a new member class, and folks had an opportunity for some folks to sign our membership book. I want to just double check here that I didn't get a text that I was wanting in lieu of this, but during our second service, we'll have some of the local folks here, and they'll come up, and we will have a bit of a different ceremony. So what I want to do this morning, though, is just sort of acknowledge those who have signed our membership book, whether they are with us here in person or those on our Zoom meeting today, or even streaming with us, because our new members are a mix of folks who live locally as well as folks who live too far away to visit us very often. But we're so glad to have all of you, and honored that you would choose to sign our membership book and become members of our congregation. And you've probably noticed, hopefully on your screen at some point, there is a vase of roses at the front of the sanctuary. It is our custom when we're welcoming new members to give each of them a rose as a symbol of welcome in our congregation. And since there are folks who are distant members who wouldn't be able to receive that rose in person, we're going to keep it in the vase so that it represents your presence with us throughout this morning's service. So the roses are very symbolic of our members who are joining us as we make the bouquet that we call the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I don't know if we're all roses. We might be different kinds of flowers here, but certainly we all have our thorns. And that's okay too. Okay, so the members is listed in our order of service. I think you've seen Kathleen Alexander, Terry Anderson, Justin Bell, Sarah Darcy, Doug Deaton, Stephen Palmer, Nami Rose, Samantha Sly, and Katie Willard. And I think two of those Members are actually present with us this morning on Zoom, Terry Anderson and Stephen Palmer. So welcome to both of you. We're so glad to have you both.
Well, thank you, Todd. I can almost smell those roses from Edmonton, but I'm glad to be a part of this organization.
Well, we are so glad and honored to have you and appreciate all the help that you've already given. Dr. Palmer, would you like to say a word or two?
Oh, yes. I just had a little problem unmuting. It's very exciting, I think, to be able to be a member of your congregation, Reverend Eklof. I'd appreciate being called Stephen rather than Dr. Palmer, but I really think the work of the congregation is very important, your work, and I'm glad to participate, even though I am currently 3,000 miles away.
Yes, wonderful, Stephen. We're so glad that we have the opportunity to have you involved, and very, very honored that you've joined us. And so thanks to both of you for formally joining. Folks who would like to join, if you want to reach out to me or our office and let us know that you're thinking about it, we'll be happy to help guide you through that process. It's pretty simple. So, but we're always honored to have new members, and particularly welcome those of you who have joined us today. So, rather than read the stuff that is in our second service ritual, I'm going to ask those of you who are in the room with me to join me in reading responsive reading number 442. Number 442. I'm going to ask Deb, once she finds a hymnal, to join us at the microphone, so those of you who are Zooming and streaming with us will be able to hear the entire text. And those hymnals are sparse this morning.
I think they were tucked away
I do. Thank you.
for the wake we had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a wake held here, and so things got moved around, and we didn't realize it until we got in this morning. And I always get in at plenty of time to fix things like that, about 9:05. So.
What's your number, Todd?
Number 442.
442.
Number 442. And I will read the first part and ask our entire congregation here in the room to read it aloud, and Deb will read with you. And this is our way of expressing our sentiments to those of you who have joined our congregation. So, we bid you welcome, who have come with weary spirit seeking rest,
Who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid,
We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart,
who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous,
We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith,
who come to probe and explore, who come to learn,
We bid you welcome, who enter this hall as a homecoming,
who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family.
Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey,
We bid you welcome.
So welcome to one and all. We're so grateful to have you as formal members of our congregation. And now I'm going to cheat and look at our order of service so I know where we're at. Oh, meditation.
As we move into a time of meditation, find a comfortable position. You can put your feet on the floor, close your eyes if you wish. And let us open our minds to the challenge of reason, open our hearts to the healing of love, open our lives to the calling of conscience, open our souls to the comfort of joy.
For our reading this morning, I'm actually going to read kind of a preamble to my sermon, because I wanted to give you a little background. My sermon coming up, that is, after our special music, so I'm not jumping in there just yet. But Reverend John H. Dietrich, who lived from 1878 until 1957, was the minister of our Spokane church from 1911 until 1916. He came to us from Pennsylvania immediately after being condemned as a heretic by the Dutch Reformed Church, the first and only of its ministers to have this distinction. It was here that Dietrich first began calling himself a humanist, and afterward went on to become an original signer of the Humanist Manifesto, to establish the Humanist Pulpit at the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, Minnesota, where he was minister from 1918 until his retirement in 1936, and to be forever recognized as the Father of Religious Humanism. Although our gratitude should rightfully go to our brothers and sisters at the First Unitarian Society for heralding Dietrich's liberal message and preserving the bulk of his writings, it is also fair to say that it was in Spokane that he found the freedom to find himself and where religious humanism was born. Today, our religion and our world needs John Dietrich's liberal message more than ever, along with his deep and unapologetic commitment to establishing a more liberal and therefore better, freer, and more dignified world for everyone. This is why I'm endeavoring to bring back his voice back into the pulpit from time to time, beginning with today's sermon, What is a Liberal? Preparing it has been a delightful but not simple task. Dietrich's sermons were nearly hour-long lectures, so be prepared. No. With 10-page or more transcripts. Mine are about 25 minutes, 5.5 pages. So I've had to omit much of what he originally said, most of which consist of the examples that he used to make his points, but never the points themselves. Although I've dramatically reduced their length, the wording remains almost entirely, more than 90% his own, although I've made a few subtle changes to say something important in fewer words, or to make better sense to us today, and to make his traditional use of pronouns more inclusive. I am extremely excited about presenting this sermon to you today because I agree with its content, could have written it myself, and deeply believe it is a message we need even more now than when it was first given by Dietrich himself sometime in the 1920s, a century ago. Thank you, Maura. Beautiful. The question which I have chosen for my subject this morning, what is a liberal, will indicate to you at once that I have in mind the problem of what constitutes the essential character of a liberal. I imagine most here this morning would consider themselves liberal. We speak of this as a liberal religion, but what are the common qualities we share that make us liberals, and how completely do we measure up to these qualities? In short, what does the term liberal mean, and when is a person rightly to be regarded as a liberal? In speaking of the term, I find it difficult to define just what we do mean by liberalism. It is one of those sweeping generalizations of our common speech, just as conservatism is, which serves as molds in which our thoughts become hardened. And this is very unfortunate, because such terms seize hastily only the salient and striking features of things. We should therefore be careful not to fall under the tyranny of catchwords and popular classifications. For instance, in simplistic terms, people are either good or bad. Things are either black or white. Whereas to the discerning world, there are seldom either good and bad, but are rather subtle mixtures of the two qualities in varied proportions of light and shade. And among those popular classifications which obscure important distinctions is that of conservative and liberal. These names conceal almost as much as they reveal. By the conservative is generally understood as one who is wedded to things as they are and is skeptical of change. By the liberal, one who is eager for any change that seems to make for progress. This is perhaps as good a distinction as we can make, and yet these interpretations are vague and undiscriminating. There are many types of both conservatism and liberalism, good and bad types of each. Among the former, we may first note that the conservatism of selfishness, which fears change because it may endanger vested interest in personal convenience. Here we find those who desire to keep things as they are for their own personal benefit and oppose change of any kind because change would deprive them of certain things which they enjoy. Then there is the conservatism of inertia or indifference, which moving contentedly along in large tracts and ruts of custom resents what it terms the agitating of the reformer and is uncomfortably disturbed by any ruffling of the surface of settled life by the stir of new ideas. We have the conservatism of disenchantment, which has resigned itself to the second best as the only thing attainable by mankind, which feels that the ideals of the progressive are attainable and utopian, and therefore is satisfied with what it calls the practical, unattainable and utopian, and therefore is satisfied with what it calls the practical. Finally, we have a more wholesome and normal conservatism, which is sentimental and has its basis in the loving attachment and deep veneration of familiar things and places, persons, institutions, and customs. One sees its strength in the reverence for the greatness that is deep-rooted in the past and has stood the shocks of time. In like manner, we may distinguish many types of liberalism. It too has an ignoble type in the selfish liberalism, which hopes to glean its harvest from improvements. Here are found the people who desire change because change would be an advantage to them just as it would be a disadvantage to others. Then there is the liberalism of unrest, which springs from a dramatic love of change, joined often with the dramatic thirst for applause. It is a sort of wanderlust in politics and religion. It is a certain nervous discontent with things as they are and desires change, regardless of whether the change be for better or for worse. Then we too have the liberalism of optimism, This is liberalism that makes exaggerated claims on behalf of humanity and stakes the whole cause on some one particular reform. According to this view, humanity has been through the centuries the victim of unjust laws and institutions, and might realize utopia tomorrow where only the clutches of a vampire minority, the privileged class, relaxed. And this type of liberalism usually has its one patent nostrum, its one universal cure-all by which humanity must be thus freed. Now, I made a footnote here saying this is the type of liberalism that dominates the current moment, an illiberalism that is useless in the world and set only upon the deliberate destruction of its own institutions and liberalism itself. I'm going to read it one more time, because I think this is the negative liberalism that is impacting the Unitarian Universalist Association as well as other liberal organizations throughout Western society today. This is liberalism that makes exaggerated claims on behalf of humanity and stakes the whole cause on some one particular reform. According to this view, humanity has been through the centuries the victim of unjust laws and institutions and might realize utopia tomorrow, where only the clutches of a vampire minority, the privileged class, relaxed. And this type of liberalism usually has its one patent nostrum, its one universal cure-all by which humanity may thus be freed. Lastly, we have the saner liberalism, which, while leaning decisively to the side of hope, tempers that hope with a recognition of the fact that humankind, instead of having fallen away from some high estate, has been moving upward, working out the brute, and is slowly but surely coming to its deserts. It differs from conservatism because while it recognizes the steady march of human progress, it declines to set a limit to the rate at which progress may hereafter be achieved. It believes in the transforming power of great ideas and in the possibility of lifting humanity as upon some great wave in enthusiasm to unexpected levels. But these are abstract types rather than flesh and blood realities. In most of us, conservatism and liberal tendencies are subtly intermingled, although the one or the other of them usually predominates. Sometimes a person is liberal in politics and conservative in religion. I have known political radicals who were ardent Roman Catholics and devoted Presbyterians. On the other hand, I have known Unitarians and rationalists of the most radical type who in economics and politics refuse to accept change. And yet we know that it was the great movement of liberalism which constituted the main glory of the 19th century. The marvelous period of intellectual and social and religious awakening in England, and a similar period in America when the great group of New England Unitarians dominated and enlightened the intellectual and spiritual life of this country. In France, it brought the Second Republic, the literary revolt of Romanticist Victor Hugo, and the socialist dreams of philosopher Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. In Italy and Hungary, it led to the democratic revolutionary movements identified with the names of Mazzini and Kossuth. In Germany, it precipitated the revolution of 1848. In Russia, it expressed itself in such literary geniuses as Tolstoy and Turgenev, and in such political revolutionists as Tchaikovsky and Kropotkin. Everywhere this new spirit was at work, sometimes peacefully and sometimes violently, but always it was directed at the direction of old tyranny and the establishment of new freedom. Now, it is this great movement which we have in mind when we speak of liberalism, and the mental qualities behind this movement when we speak to the need of a better world, and the consecration of their minds to the achievement of this world at any cost. And it was this movement of liberalism which marks the 19th century as the most remarkable period in human history. That's a big claim, and by the way, I have a sermon coming up about that, and I agree with it. In fact, the 19th century did more to add to the sum of total human life than all the other centuries of the Christian era put together. As German philosopher Heinrich Treitschke once said, everything new that the 19th century created is the work of liberalism. Right? What did the 1800s follow? The Enlightenment. It is no doubt because the world has come to recognize this fact. This is an amazing sentence. This one blew me away. It is no doubt because the world has come to recognize this fact that we honor the term and like to be called liberals. There is an occasional person who glories in his conservatism, but the majority of people are proudest when they are recognized as liberals. So it was in the 1920s. All this now brings me to the inquiry as to how many of us who claim to the name of liberal live in accordance with the ideals which are involved in that great name. You would be surprised at the number of kinds of people who call themselves liberal. I was asked some years ago to give a course of lectures out in the state of Washington in a small town about 100 miles from Spokane, the city in which I was located. I was told there were many liberals in this town interested in hearing about liberal religion. Well, all the liberals came, and when I stepped upon the platform, I faced the most assorted collection of people I had ever seen. Among them were believers in every school of religious opinion, as well as unbelievers in any religion whatsoever. Old and New Style Unitarians, mildly or liberal Orthodox, spiritualists, Christian Scientists, Quakers, Theosophists, Swedenborgians, and many other forms of individual eccentricity. There were also free thinkers of every possible opinion, agnostics, indifferentists, skeptics, atheists, secularists, and many others. A single night, I was reminded, attracts all the bugs in town. There was every possible, single light, I should say, attracts all the bugs in town. There was every possible degree and shade of culture and intelligence. There were those of the highest intelligence, broadest views, and most inclusive sympathies, and others of the densest ignorance, the narrowest prejudices, the crudest opinions, and the most bigoted and scornful tempers. Wildly as they differed from each other, fiercely as they antagonized each other's beliefs, they all alike claimed to be liberal and would have been grossly insulted if their liberalism had been questioned. I have spoken often of this incident to illustrate the point that there is nothing more difficult to define than this thing that we call liberalism. It has no creed and no organization. Its most notable proponents are members of different churches, political parties, and social classes, yet there is no other words that can be used in its stead. Some try to use the word radical, but it implies someone who holds extreme views and advocates for extreme measures, or as the dictionary says, one who carries theories to unqualified conclusions. So while I take great pride in being a liberal, I would take no pride in being called a radical. The important thing is not to be radical, but to be right. And there are times when it is right to be radical, and times not to be radical, but to be right. But I cannot conceive of any time when it is not right to be liberal. For liberalism is a mindset. It is an atmosphere, a point of view, a spirit. As the British statesman Lord John Morley says, Liberalism is a marked way of looking at things, feeling them, handling them, judging them. William Ellery Channing, the great Unitarian preacher of the 19th century, said that liberalism was moved by the dignity of human nature. What he meant was that liberalism looks upon human life as the one thing that really counts in the universe. And it judges every institution, the state, the church, the school, the corporation, and the labor union in light of whether or not it liberates and dignifies human lives. Wouldn't it be a wonderful world if that were our guiding principle? If it does, then the liberal supports and protects it. But if any particular institution weakens or degrades or enslaves and impoverishes life, then the liberal condemns and destroys it. Life is the one thing that counts in the mind of the liberal, not the state, not the church, not the school. Human life itself. This explains why liberal movements in all countries and in every age have always been identified with religious reformations, political revolutions, and social reforms. To give the slave his freedom, the serf his land, the woman her rights, the laborer his product, the child its childhood, and the individual one's right to religious conviction. This has been the work of liberalism from the beginning. And all because each individual, weighed down by social or religious or political tyranny, represented human life and therefore was entitled to the boon of liberty. With this conception of liberalism clearly in mind, we are now ready to consider the typical marks or characteristics of the liberal mind. For liberalism is not about what beliefs we hold, but about how we hold them. There are many characteristics of the liberal mind, but we'll be satisfied to discuss 6 of the most important. Firstly, the liberal must have a free mind, absolutely free, free from prejudice, free from fear, and from any interest of any kind. The liberal, above all else, must be both the exponent and the champion of the ideal of freedom, demanding freedom of expression for oneself and help guarantee it for others. It is this idea of freedom that others, no matter how much they may differ from us in opinion or their way of life, are nevertheless entitled to every liberty which has ever constituted the noblest attribute of the liberal spirit. Secondly, a liberal must always have an open mind, absolutely free from bigotry in its every form, and be ready to hear and consider sincerity any idea which may come up. This is especially true of new ideas. Even though these ideas may seem to involve the destruction of everything that has hitherto been regarded as sacred and true. The liberal will not run away from such ideas, nor will close one's ears against them. However dangerous or strange they may appear, the liberal will listen to them with sympathy, study them diligently, and reject them only by successfully demonstrating their futility after careful investigation. The liberal will not accept an idea as true just because it's new, nor reject it just because it is new. The liberal will follow the injunction of Paul to prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. And this is the second mark of the liberal spirit. Yet a majority of people have some subjects to which they practically close their minds, some questions forbidden to ask. I have in mind a very remarkable man in a Unitarian church which I once served, and he is typical of a great many Unitarians, in the East especially. He was a splendid example of the open mind when the latest speculation of philosophy, the newest surmise of biblical criticism, the most recent and extravagant idea of God were brought to his mind. But the moment any question of social or economic reform was brought to his attention, his mind closed like a steel trap. And how many hundreds of people of this kind we find in the Unitarian churches? If there ever was a time when we needed social reform, new economic ideas, and new international relations, it's now. And yet, I know many who are real liberals in religion, but close their minds when it comes to these questions, just as they would close the doors against a plague. So again, the second mark of the liberal is genuinely opening one's mind. The third mark of the liberal is the broad mind, the understanding mind, the sympathetic mind. The true liberal does not treat anything with contempt or scorn, but seeks rather to understand others, no matter how alien they are to one's own habits, or how dangerous, apparently, to one's interest, to understand their ideas and ideals, their miseries, desires, and ambitions, their virtues, which they always have, and their vices, which they usually have. Instead of ridiculing others because of certain beliefs and actions, the liberal seeks to understand them, to get their point of view, to feel their woes and to understand their hopes. In seeking to understand others, the liberal does not necessarily accept their ideas or approve of their methods or feel compelled to help them satisfy their goals. The liberal may feel they are mistaken in their aims and dangerous in their ways, but holds that it is one's primary duty to understand others as the best way to resolve our differences. Before the liberal has any right to judge another, and certainly before there is any right to condemn or punish another, we must truly know them. And this understanding or sympathetic mind is another mark of liberalism. Another mark of liberalism is the inquiring and thoroughgoing mind, the mind which will not be content with any sham, nor with any half-truth, but which will be satisfied with nothing less than the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The liberal must be, in the original sense, a radical, that is, a root man, one who tries to trace all things back to their roots, their origin, their foundation, and so be thoroughgoing and sure as possible in all one's knowledge and opinions. The liberal will not be content with another individual's nor an institution's theory of things, but will find out for oneself whether or not certain things are true. And never will one presume to form an opinion, much less to express one, without having carefully collected all the facts and sifted through the evidence. The true liberal insists upon seeing things as they really are and not as one has been told they are by others. Another qualification of the liberal mind is sincerity, honesty, and naturalness. The true liberal is always free from pretense and hypocrisy and will never pretend to believe something one does not believe. For instance, I have in mind a man who remains in the Orthodox Church, even though he no longer believes in the doctrine of that church. He once said to me, Mr. Dietrich, I am just as liberal in my religious views as you are. I stand practically upon the same ground. But I remain in this church because of the good I can do through an institution of this kind. It puts me in a difficult intellectual situation, but I think this is justified by the results which I get. Well, all I have to say about such a man is that while we may hold the same theological views, he is not a liberal. One of the essential characteristics of the liberal mind is absolute sincerity. And the last mark of the liberal mind is courage. Enough courage to have all the other marks. Cowardice is poor material to make a liberal of. Indifferentists and sneerers and ridiculers may be formed out of cowardice, but not liberals. Only a brave person will dare, in the face of all obstacles, to insist upon unqualified freedom, both for oneself and for others. Let me repeat that. Only a brave person will dare, in the face of all obstacles, to insist upon unqualified freedom, both for oneself and for others. Only a brave person will dare keep one's mind open for the consideration of every new problem which comes up. Only a brave person will dare to be broad and sympathetic and understanding when all the world is condemning. Only a brave person will dare search down to the very roots of things when others are accepting the dictum of the church and the state and the college. Only a brave person will dare be sincere when it is advantageous to be insincere. And that is why courage must be included in the qualifications which mark the liberal mind. Some are afraid of being too liberal, but I do not think anyone can be too liberal. Not in the right sense of the word. No one can be too open-minded or too free or too broad or too inquiring or too sincere or too brave. People learn to love genuine liberals wherever they go, just as they learn to despise the counterfeit liberals wherever they go. They despise the counterfeits because they are counterfeits, and because all they accomplish is to divide and destroy. They love the genuine because they are genuine, and because all they say and do tends to carry the world forward to a better day, to a clearer light, a larger charity of growing peace on earth and goodwill to all. We as a group of people gather here from Sunday to Sunday call ourselves liberals. Liberalism is supposed to be the prevailing temper and purpose of this congregation. The question that concerns us all is, are we true to this purpose and temper? Are we liberals of the genuine type or of the make-believe type? I trust we are genuine. If we are not, we must make ourselves such. And we can make ourselves such by being truly free, truly open-minded, truly broad and sympathetic, truly inquiring, truly sincere, and truly brave. For it is these things that make us truly liberal. Thank you.
Well, this last hymn does not make comment on liberalism, but it does make comments on humanism. It's called Where is Our Holy Church? It asks 5 questions, religious questions, and then answers those questions in terms of a humanistic perspective. So please rise to sing Where is Our Holy Church?
Equal
As we close today, I would like to share these words with you. I send you out now to share yourself with the world. May its promise and complexity set your mind ablaze. May you hold fast to what your life has taught you. May you question everything, and when you have changed the world and the world has changed you, may you return again to this place and share what you have learned with us. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum. Shalom.
Shalom.